I, 33 male, knew my wife, 31 female, all of my life, but she and I hadn't started dating until about 10 years ago. We went to high school together, though we weren't really in the same circles. I was more athletic and involved in sports, and she was a bit of a bookworm who spent her full time in the library. I hate to say it. I hardly even noticed her in high school, but at a reunion, we ran into each other and we really hit it off. I didn't even care about any of the other classmates in the room, I just wanted to talk to her. We ended up dating, and a year later we got married. It all happened fast, but we felt like it was right. For the past 10 years of our marriage, we have never questioned that. A little over a year ago, my sister-in-law was tragically diagnosed with lung cancer. The entire family was shattered by the news, especially my brother. Unfortunately, my sister-in-law wasn't able to fight off the cancer, and she passed away about 3 months after the diagnosis. It was a horrible tragedy for the entire family, and there was a hole left in her heart. My wife had always been a very gentle, caring person, so she took it upon herself to make sure my brother was taken care of while he was in mourning. She would make food and bring it over to his house. She would make sure he was eating. She washed his clothes and made sure he had someone to talk to. From the way it sounded, she was a rock for him in the hardest time of his life. Never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that the two of them were sleeping together. But I was so wrong. The first instance where I noticed something was off was when I showed up at my brother's house, one day after my wife had told me she was going over there. I had a key, and I never knocked on his door when I went to visit. So I just walked in and hollered for them both. It took a minute for them to come and meet me, but they both came from the part of the house where the bedrooms were. Genuinely, I did not think anything could have been going on. I asked them what was going on, and they told me that they were just tidying up the room. The three of us spent the rest of the night together at his house. I noticed that they were sitting somewhat close on the couch, but I didn't think much of it. I trusted them. One night while my wife and I were both at home, she got a text message from my brother. She told me that she would be going over there the following day, and helping him go through some of his wife's belongings. I didn't have a problem with it, but I was starting to feel like she was too much of a crutch for him. I suggested that maybe instead of going over there, we should offer to pay for therapy for him. I figured it might be nice for him to have a professional to talk to. She just brushed it off and said that she would talk to him about it and see what he said the following day. Now I knew that packing up some of his wife's belongings and figuring out what to do with them would be a big task. That is a big step in moving forward for anyone. I was a little hurt that he hadn't asked me to help him, but again, my wife had been a major help to him since his wife passed. While I was driving home from work, I figured it might be nice to stop by and offer to help. I grabbed some takeout food and made my way over to my brother's house. When I unlocked the door to go in, I was about to holler and get their attention, but I heard some strange noises. They were unmistakably sex noises. I couldn't believe I was hearing something like that when my brother had just lost his wife. On top of that, he was there with my wife. I simply walked out of the house. I was shocked at the time, and I didn't know how to process what I had just heard. I tried to rationalize it, thinking that maybe he had someone else there, and it wasn't my wife. But when I got home and saw that she wasn't there, I knew that wasn't the case. I played it cool, thinking about how I wanted to move forward. I was 100% going to leave my wife, and I was going to cut my brother off. Both of them completely shattered my trust. My wife returned home about an hour later and immediately went to take a shower. While she was in there, I walked into the bathroom and started brushing my teeth. It wasn't unusual for us to use the bathroom at the same time. That's one of the perks of married life, I guess. Her phone was on the counter, so I grabbed it. While she was showering, I looked through her messages with my brother and found dozens of text messages where they had both been recounting the times they shared together. My brother was frequently asking her to come over because he wanted to feel her again. I scrolled back to around the time when my wife first started going to visit him. I found messages where they confessed their feelings for each other. Apparently, my brother had put the first feelers out for the relationship. He told my wife that he had always had feelings for her in high school, but he was too nervous to ask her out. She told him that she had felt the same way. She went so far as to tell him that sometimes when she was sleeping with me, she would be imagining that it was him. I took screenshots of the messages, and I sent them to myself before deleting them from her phone. I put it back down on the counter so she would never know that I even had them. I hated them both, and I wanted them to suffer for what they did. As angry as I was that they betrayed me, I couldn't believe that they would disrespect my brother's late wife the way that they had. They were both unbelievably selfish and they needed to be called out for it. I gathered several of my family members, mostly the core family who had the biggest impact on my and my brother's lives. My brother and my wife were there sitting right next to each other. We had a peaceful dinner together, and toward the end just outright told everybody what I discovered. My brother and wife tried to make it seem like I was crazy and nothing was going on. Then I pulled out my phone and read off quotes from the screenshots. They looked horrified as I read the messages. My mom asked my brother if what I said was true, and I could hear the sadness in her voice. Everybody yelled at both of them for how disrespectful it was to my sister-in-law. It hadn't even been 6 months since she had passed away, and he had started an affair with his sister-in-law. Everybody asked questions, and we found out that the affair started 2 months after his wife died. It was unbelievable to hear. Everybody was yelling at them and telling them that they were selfish and cold. And I didn't want to see them. My parents didn't think that I handled it the right way, but they were glad that I told everyone about it. They had all been feeling very sorry for him for his grief, but he was clearly not mourning in the same way as them. In the end, I divorced my wife and I'm happy now without her. She didn't ask for anything in the divorce, and if she did, I had enough evidence of her affair that she wouldn't have gotten it. Almost all of my family is extremely angry with my brother, and he hasn't been invited any gatherings or events since they found out. I don't know if people are going to come around and forgive him or if he's going to stay in the doghouse. All I know is that I never want to see either of them again. OP. I am so sorry you meant to go through something like this. Being cheated on is hard enough as it is. I can't even imagine what it is like when your own brother is the one who initiates the affair. I'm very sorry to hear about your sister-in-law. It seems like she had a special place in your family's heart. It is such a shame that your brother would disrespect her memory that way. Your brother might have initiated the affair, but your wife was very easily swayed. She used his grief as an excuse to go forward with something she had been wanting for some time. Both of them completely betrayed your trust, your sister-in-law's memory, and the entire family. They should be very ashamed of themselves. I hope that you and your family can find happiness in the wake of your sister-in-law's death, as well as the affair that was carried out after. Thank you for sharing with us. Now let's get into our second story for today. I, 27 male, met my girlfriend, 26 female, in high school, and we had been together since our senior year. I moved around a lot growing up, so I transferred to my girlfriend's high school senior year. We hit it off and we had practically been inseparable ever since. When it came time to go to college, we initially went to separate schools. She wanted to study nursing, and I was studying engineering. During the first semester, I wasn't fitting in with my curriculum. I was generally unhappy with the school that I'd chosen. My girlfriend was the one to suggest I consider transferring to her school. I took the tours and I spoke to some of the students and professors, and it seemed like it would be a good fit for me. So I transferred for the spring semester and got everything started there. We stayed together all through college, and we even moved in together after. Both of us got jobs right after school. I was working for a tech company, and she was working in the pediatric ward of a hospital. After a year, her job had taken a toll on her, and she was very depressed. She didn't like to talk about it, but I couldn't even imagine a lot of the things that she saw in a PDF ward. She told me that she had been interested in going back to school so she could teach instead. We both thought it was the best way for her to still do what she loved, but without having to sacrifice her mental health. She applied to several schools, and she got into almost all of them. One of the schools that she applied to was one of the top in the industry. It was prestigious and her getting in was a big deal. She only really applied on a whim, but once she was accepted, we both knew that was where she had to go. The only difficulty with the decision was that that school was in a different state. I couldn't move because of work, so we decided to give long distance a try. She rented an apartment in the city, finding another student enrolled in the program that she could share it with. We had planned on visiting each other often and having video calls so we could stay in touch. For the first couple of months of the program, everything was going great with us. I hadn't had the time to go and visit her because I was busy with my own work, but we video chatted several times a week, and we were texting each other all the time. However, I started to notice some changes in our relationship. At first, I just assumed that it was because of the distance. I figured there must have been some adjustment period that we needed. But eventually, she stopped wanting to video chat so much because she was saying that she was slammed with schoolwork. I understood what she was saying. It was hard to adjust to, but I wanted to make sure she was still keeping up with her schoolwork without distraction. When she first enrolled in the program, we were told that her fall would end in the middle of December. Then her spring semester was supposed to start in the middle of January. I had been looking forward to our month-long break together. It has been a very long time since I saw my girlfriend, and I wanted to spend the holidays with her. The week before she was supposed to return home, she called me and told me that there had been a change of plans. Apparently, a job that she had on campus offered a position over the break that would pay more than what she made during the semester. Because we were renting 2 apartments for her to go to school, we figured it would be the smart thing for her to stay and work. The week passed, and I was missing her more than ever. One night, I was scrolling through her social media page just so I could look at pictures of her. And I noticed somebody was commenting on all of her posts. When I say all of them, I mean all of them. My girlfriend was very attractive, and she had a substantial following on Instagram. It wasn't anything along the lines of being an influencer, but she would get people she didn't know messaging her all the time. However, the person commencing seemed friendly with her. She hadn't posted any pictures of him on her page, but there were pictures of both of them together on his. They were pictures that could have been 2 friends hanging out, but at the same time, it looked like it could be more from what I could tell. They were alone in most of them. When I looked at some of the dates of the post, I felt my heart break a little. In an effort to hurt myself even more, I opened my text messages with my girlfriend and looked for some dates that she told me she couldn't video chat because she was busy with schoolwork. I compared them to some of the posts on his page and they matched. She lied to me and told me that she was busy with schoolwork so she could go and do things with this man. Right away, I knew something was off. If she wanted to hang out with a friend, I would have understood, but she didn't even tell me about this guy. There had to be something more going on with them. The next time I talked to her, I confronted her about it. I asked her who he was and why she ever told me about him and why she lied about being busy. She told me that it hadn't crossed her mind to tell me about every friend that she had. I tried to explain to her that it was different because this was a man, but she told me that it wasn't because he was gay. I froze when she said that. I felt like I was just silly for even thinking something could have happened. A few weeks passed, and I decided that I was just going to surprise my girlfriend for the holidays. It had been too long since we'd seen each other, and I wanted to visit her. I didn't mention anything about it. In fact, I told her that I was planning on going to my parents so she wouldn't miss anything. I got to her apartment, and I tried to buzz the door so she could let me in, but there was no answer. I waited for some time, but I started to think that maybe surprising her wasn't the best idea. It was freezing outside, so I made my way to her job. I figured I could surprise her there and then grab her keys so I could wait in the apartment for her. She worked at a student center, but because there weren't many students on campus, she was supposed to be doing clerical work and organizing things. When I arrived at the building, I walked through the door and looked around for her everywhere. But I couldn't find her. Eventually, I ran into another worker, and I asked her where my girlfriend was. She told me that she was in one of the locker room cleaning with the man I saw on Instagram. She pointed me in the direction, and I made my way over there. My heart was racing because I was so excited to see my girlfriend again. As soon as I opened the door to the room, all of the excitement disappeared. I heard a shower running in, various moans and giggle coming from the direction of it. Unmistakably, it was my girlfriend's voice. I heard a man's voice whispering and telling her to be quiet too. I didn't know if I should go forward or not. Did I really need to see what was happening? I was frozen for a moment while I tried to decide. I was shocked that she would cheat on me, and even more so that she was doing it in public. My girlfriend had never been someone who was interested in stuff like that. It was unlike her. It hit me while I was standing there that they were on school property doing something they definitely shouldn't have been, while they were supposed to be working nonetheless. I didn't know if I would ever do anything with it, but I thought I should get evidence of it. I pulled out my phone and recorded as I walked closer and got both of them in the frame. I recorded for about 10 seconds while they both stood in the shower having sex. Neither of them even knew that I was there. I walked out and left the building without saying anything else. I consider my options from there. I wanted to tell her that she could just stay in the city and break up with her, but that didn't seem like enough. I looked online at her school's website and found the contact information for the dean of students. I emailed them, letting them know that I caught 2 of the students engaging in explicit activities in a public setting in a school building. At first, I got an out-of-office email, but a few days later, I got an official response from the dean. They wanted to set up a time to video chat with me so they could get more information. In the days that I was waiting, I decided to text my girlfriend and tell her that it was over between us. She seemed confused, but I told her that I knew what happened, and that I wanted her to be out at the apartment completely. I packed up her things and her sister contacted me to set up a time to come and get them. After the holidays, I had a meeting with the dean where I showed her the evidence that I collected, and I gave her the names of the students. She told me that they would be reprimanded for their actions. 2 days later, I got a furious phone call from my ex-girlfriend telling me that I had ruined her life. Apparently, both of them were expelled from the university. She was forced to leave the school, and so was her new boyfriend. Her sister tried calling me and telling me that I was a jerk for what I did, but it just hung up the phone. Now I'm trying to focus on moving on and being happy again with other relationships, but it is much harder than I thought. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. You were supportive and there for your girlfriend when she was going through a tough time changing careers. But in the end, she proved that she didn't care about that. She was selfish and chose to betray your trust while you had a long-distance relationship. I can't believe she told you that the affair partner was gay when you questioned it. If she was unhappy, she could have come to you and told you right away, so could have ended things amicable, but instead, she chose to lie and treat your relationship like it meant nothing. It's good that they were both expelled. It is definitely karma coming to get both of them. I'm sorry to hear that you're struggling in new relationships, but I wish you the best moving forward. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like